Hey, this is Jeff Harbley from the Calling and Career Office, and this is a bonus video in our 5 for 5 video series that we did. And this one's focused more specifically on working from home or going to class from home, and maybe some ideas for getting the most out of this really unorthodox experience of going to class. And so I want to share three different categories with you that maybe have some tips and tricks that will be helpful to you, that I found to be helpful to me in working in a largely digitalized virtual world that we're currently in. And so it really is the three C's: consistency, complications, and calendar. So let's start with consistency. It's really important that we have daily rhythms or daily practices. And so I'd encourage you, even if you don't have to always set an alarm. Get up, eat breakfast, spend some time in God's Word or other forms of spiritual discipline, and maybe get outside, walk, do some kind of workout. Get into a regular schedule so that you're doing the same things every day. We're wired for rhythm, we're wired for routine, and those things can be really helpful for us. I would encourage you to find what works and stick with it, especially as it pertains to getting to class. And setting a good pattern for engagement in class. As someone who teaches classes myself, it's hard enough to know if I'm connecting with the students when we're in the same room, let alone in some kind of virtual space. And so one of the kindest and more generous things that you can do for your faculty members is to show up and share, to be there, to be on time, and then share. And even though it feels a little bit awkward and strange across this virtual medium, to find ways to get connected and be involved in the classroom. And then as far as the other point, as far as consistency goes, is to maybe have a little bit of a pre-class routine and a post-class routine. I liken this to the idea of the commute to and from work. We need that time before we get to class or before we get to work to prepare for our day. So maybe that's listening to music or listening to a podcast or thinking about something, maybe some time in prayer. The same thing is true at the end of the day. We need that little bit of commute time, right, to decompress from class. And right now you're in a situation where you might walk out of your classroom, which might be your bedroom or your study in your house, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of the fray with your family, in the kitchen with your mom, having an argument with a sibling. These are not normal circumstances for class. So as best as you can, try to have something a little before, a little bit after class, some time to process, some time to reflect. The second C is complications, and of course we have a lot of these when it comes to virtual learning. We've all been there. Someone walks in, somebody yells something from a room on another side of the house. I actually think that dogs have some kind of ability to know when a Zoom meeting begins because they immediately start to bark. So what do we do when these complications enter into our world? Well, there's a couple things. Avoid those and adapt. Now, first of all, we can't always avoid them, but we can at least have the best plan possible to avoid them. So thinking about the space that we're in, the distance that we're in from other family members or animals in our house, how can we set such a routine that we avoid as many complications as possible? The reality is, though, those complications are going to happen. And so when they do, how will you adapt? Lots of times when those complications happen in meetings that I'm in, I find that my heart rate starts to race. I get a little bit overwhelmed and start to think, man, I'm going to get so far behind. I'm not going to be able to keep up with this. It's good to maybe just take a break. If you need to even step away from class just for a moment to gather yourself, that's really okay. Find ways to connect and communicate well with your faculty about things that are hard about your virtual learning environment. Your faculty want to hear from you. And so avoiding and adapting complications are critical to get the most out of this virtual learning environment. Finally, the last C is having a calendar. And this is a really important one. Have a calendar. If you haven't practiced having a calendar in the past, now is a really good time to find a good calendar, whether it's Google Calendar or something in Outlook, and schedule everything out. And not just class time, but actually homework time, reflection time. I would say even schedule things that have nothing to do with your coursework. So workout time or spiritual disciplines time. One of my best advice that I go to again and again with students who are thinking about looking for internships and jobs is to literally schedule an hour a week for job search time. The reason isn't that you need an hour every week. You might not. But when that anxiety starts to creep in during the week and you start to think, oh my gosh, I have to find a job after graduation, I got to figure out what I'm going to be doing with my life, you can say, hey, I already know I have Thursday at 3 p.m. for an hour scheduled to apply to jobs, to reach out to connections, to maybe consult with the CCO, and I'm going to wait for that hour. I'm going to push it to then. Having things on a calendar can be a really helpful way to reduce stress and to enable your sense of control in the work that you're doing daily. It's also a great way to share what you're up to. So you can, the great thing about calendars is you can share them with your loved ones, you can share them with your friends and your family members who are at home with you, and they know what to expect when you're going to be in class and when you're going to be studying and when you're going to be working on a test or a paper. Those things can be really helpful to the point above about avoiding and adapting to the complications that come. That's all I have for today. I hope you can find a good rhythm. Working from home is not easy, and there's some really great videos if you want to see how people are failing at this every day. The reality is we're going to fail at this at times, and yet the beauty of failure is that we learn from it and we grow from it. Failure is not always a bad thing. In fact, it's a really good teacher. And so when you do fail, well, how can you learn from it? How can you grow from it? And how can you bounce back the next day in the rhythm and the routine that you get in working from home? Just know that you're loved, your faculty here, we want you to succeed, and we're praying for you all. So don't hesitate to reach out to us and communicate when you're stressed, when anxiety is kicking in. That's it for today. I hope you're staying well. We miss you here on campus, but over this next month, I hope that you can get into a rhythm and routine and make the most of this experience. Take care.